the more intense uses close to where we have intersections and we have a road system that supports that. And if it moves out into an area that isn't that way, then at least personally, I don't feel that's consistent. And I don't think that that was, as we prepared our plan, that we tried to concentrate those more intense uses where those intersections occurred. And it's not, we don't want to really encourage development in the township just because it's viewed as an easy alternative from trying to develop in Dublin or Hilliard or someplace else.
If it's going to occur, we want it to be nice.
It seems to have jumped immediately to like a 3-story thing. I have owned 2 single-story apartment complexes, one in Arlington and one in a small town, and they coexisted.
If it's done well, it's seamless, and I understand exactly what you're saying. And I mean, what we're proposing over here is 2-story. Even when we're close now, the senior project probably is 3-story because that's it would be an independent living kind of the efficiency of that. But that's more of an it's more like an institutional building.
I'm just saying there can be.
But there can, but I think if you were backing up to residential, I understand exactly what you're saying, and I would have the same reaction.
Hey Joe, I got a question. You said infrastructure be in place, so obviously you wouldn't think there's no infrastructure on Warner Road. You wouldn't think that there would be high density apartments on there, would you? Since there's no infrastructure to hold it.
Well, I think that if it's difficult to get there, and there's no question when you put a higher density project, you're going to create traffic just because of that intensity, then I think it should be located where there's access to that. And so if it leapfrogs out to an area just because there's a vacant parcel, to me that's not the right answer.
How do you see, and Gary, you jump in too, I don't take the...
That's okay. That's fine. Joe's a long-standing member of the community.
I like listening to him. I mean, he knows his stuff.
You do have good taste. I mean,
well, he does.
I mean, I do think people should value his word because I know there's one apartment. I mean, just because we're on high density, there is one apartment complex that you did build in Dublin that I think if you drove by, you'd never know it was there.
And I want to address
there's ways to do things.
I want to address the Warner Road issue a little bit because Joe was part of that too in 2008 when we did that plan, and when we allowed for the potential for multifamily over here, there was a couple of factors that went into that, and that's not to say that we were saying this is what it has to be. But what we looked at was Fraser Estates. They're already sandwiched on one side by industrial. This is already zoned industrial. So right now anybody can come in and build industrial, 40 feet from their property line. And we heard a lot in 2008 from some of the folks on the other side who were concerned about being sandwiched up against industrial. But we also heard in the developers' last meeting from some folks on the other side that said we prefer industrial. So I think there's kind of a mix of opinion there. Again, the concern that we had at the time was we looked at it and we said, okay, if we're going to provide an option to industrial for anybody, what would that option be? And we could have put single family on there. Or we could have put something low density on there, but at the end of the day, no property owner is going to give up an industrial zoning for the value that you get out of single family. So what we would in effect been saying is you're stuck with industrial. The single family would have been a pipe dream. So we said what could potentially they get the value of the land out to make it worthwhile for them to sell it to somebody else for something other than industrial. And the multifamily was that transition piece because of the value of those, and that's why it got put on the plan. No other reason. It was just to say if we had to provide an option for these folks, what would that option be? And they may not like it, and that's okay. but we just wanted to provide some other option other than just being completely surrounded by industrial uses. You know, the challenge with this is if somebody wants to come in and build a factory and run 3 shifts, the zoning permits it, and so the township's hands are kind of tied. And so it's a really bad place to be in, unfortunately. So
Well, and I do think
it's a hard decision.
that the right kind of multifamily could very well cohabitate there. Now, maybe, I have not even seen the
Yeah,
application.
I have a question over here on what is happening at Costco. The field is, next to it is Welding Holdings, or Welding Estate.
Weldon Holding?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they in the process of rezoning that, and if they are, what are they trying to zone it as?
They are not.
So it's-
No application has been filed on that piece of property.
Okay.
The person who owned that piece of property was a gentleman that has been around for a long time. He actually knows Larry King, was partnered with Larry King, made from scratch. The person that owned that property died, and that property right now is sitting in an estate. So I think that the estate's probably going to be looking to get rid of it. But as of yet, nobody's come to the township to say, you know, we'd like to do this with it.
Okay, what would you guys like to see go there?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, you've
Because
got,
that's happening. I mean, that corner there is happening right now.
well, yeah, the Costco's going in, the retail uses are going in. So the question is, what is the appropriate use and transition from that point over? You know, we had, again, on the original plan, if you look at the original zoning, we had the potential to either put a mix of uses in there where you could scale down, you know, into smaller commercial uses or offices or something of that type, or you know, continue on with the retail, or to do something different. If you guys feel like there should be something different, I think that's open for discussion. We can make those changes to the 2008 plan. The whole point, yeah, I mean, the whole point isn't necessarily for us to say this is
Crystal
what it should be.
Hospital, retirement center.
You want a retirement center right there?
Or,
next door?
I don't know, I mean, something's gonna happen, and what's gonna be best for all of us?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, for the future
Yeah, so
growth,
for all of us,
after
Gary-
after
Yeah, all
that
of
is
us.
designed, you want the future growth, what's gonna come behind it,
I
to
like
be
that.
complementary to what you just put there.
Right.
A retirement center.
We already figured.
I'm just, you know,
All right, I stole the meeting back from Joe.
So Gary, I mean, that is a concern for us that live
Yeah,
on Weldon
it is.
Road.
Sure.
Is what is that property?
So
I
what is
actually
the best-
called that guy to ask him before we built our house, if I could buy some of that from him to build our house. And,
Did you talk to Farrell?
this was about 11 years ago now. And so,
He's a tough customer.
he said, yeah, make me an offer.
Well, he was a tough customer.
Yeah, so.
Farrell, to give you a little background, Farrell, he was one of those guys that would buy just little pieces of useless strips
Yeah.
that were right along the right of way, and then when somebody needed to widen the road, he'd say, give me a lot of money for it.
Yeah, well, that's more or less, and he goes, yeah, make me an offer. Yeah, start at $1 million.
He was pretty shrewd.
Yeah, so, you know, that is a major concern. You have, that is all residential on Weldon Road there, except for that piece.
Right.
So, you know, that,
prefer it to be residential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I would prefer.
Yeah, I think that the value, I don't see that anybody ever developing that as a residential piece of property.
Next to it or
It
Weldon,
it is too valuable.
no, next to or Weldon Road, like point two.
No, not Weldon, but,
Yeah.
no, the question is.
no, we're talking about the 17
See, that's what I mean,
acres
I
undeveloped,
think we don't
right
always talk
down
the same.
there, that piece.
Right.
That's what we're talking
Well, you have this piece, and then you have this piece that kind of stretches along. Now, that piece, maybe, I don't know.
maybe what?
Maybe somebody could purchase that. It depends on what, for a residential use.
That's the same owner, isn't it?
It is the same owner, but there are different characteristics to that piece of property. Number one, it's kind of behind, it's pretty far off of the main road in terms of Post Road. And so,
But if you made.
I wouldn't rule that out.
If you made it residential and put several homes back there, you would enter it from Weldon Road.
Yeah. If they were going to split those pieces up, that's probably how they would do it. And again, I don't have a crystal ball, I can't tell you what the landowner's gonna do and what kind of value he's gonna place on it.
So who has the land now?
It's in an estate.
Yeah, both those pieces.
Yeah, both of those pieces are in an estate. So sooner or later, somebody's gonna come to us and say, this is our plan. We just don't know what that is yet.
So if they
what-
came to you and said, we want to do higher density homes, what don't you want? What do you want and what don't you want? I mean,
Well,
like
like
this,
an apartment complex then?
I'm just so happy.
We can help
Or
burn it down.
condos, or.
I mean, this is, I think this isn't,
Sorry.
this isn't great. I actually didn't hear you, so.
Can't you, that long strip, isn't that like a separate strip? It's not all together, can't you kind of own it and make that long strip right there like residential? Like maybe sell off a couple acres. I'd rather have a nice home in there, a couple nice homes than apartment buildings.
Right. Well,
Or a condo, I would take a nice
Yeah.
condo.
I want to be really clear with everybody. The township can't zone anything until somebody comes to us with a proposal. Or we can't zone anything without the property owner's permission. We have to, if the township can initiate a rezoning, but the township can't do it without going through the same process that everybody else has.
So Gary, as neighbors of that property, you know, what say do we have in, when that proposal is made, what say do we have to say, you know, we don't want high-density apartments in there?
Well, you always have a say. I mean, you have a say tonight. I mean, that's what we're here to discuss. We're here to try and find what you guys think might be appropriate. Now, I can tell you, if we say it's single family, it's probably not gonna last forever. But maybe, again, maybe, depends on the value, but the back piece I see as having a lot less value, price per acre, than the front piece. The front piece has access to Post Road, so I can see them putting a lot higher value on this piece than that piece. Now, I don't know if they're willing to sell them separately. Again, you know, we don't control any of that. No, retail will never work in the back.
What if it was something like a retirement center and maybe that doesn't come with as many cars? You know, like assisted living or something. I know you don't, you're not, here's what I worry for you, just looking at it, I think 161, you know that's a hot piece of land.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, that skinny lot is just weird. But I also think you think about, okay, well, 3 houses, that's fine, but that landowner, he gets to really kind of ask for what he wants.
Well,
Okay,
okay,
anybody
okay,
can
to
ask.
But-
build my house on Weldon Road, I had to have 150 feet of road frontage,
Yeah, under the current zoning.
and I had to have 1.6 acres to build on Weldon Road. So we had to do some crazy layout for me to build, and we were okay with that. We got it figured out, and
Do you have services? You have public service, sewer and water?
I have a well and a septic, and I'm just fine with that.
In Selma
That's why.
Yeah.
Right, that's why the 2 acre requirement.
Yeah,
Now,
so
the problem is, now, because they've got utilities to Costco, that means utilities are gonna be available to those 2 pieces. That's what puts the value on it. When utilities arrive to an area, that's when
Now, those are Marysville water and sewage, right?
it is Marysville water and sewer.
Because we're not allowing Dublin to push Plum's water and sewage to that spot, right?
Well, not right now.
Well, we hope not ever.
Yeah,
Oh, right now, that's not in the service area.
it is not in
Columbus
their,
or Dublin.
it is not in their service area agreement. And I don't know when that service area agreement expires, but I think it's a number of years left on it.
Yeah.
Because Costco, that whole Dublin green,
Right,
is going to use Marysville's water and sewage, right?
yes,
That's being pushed down, okay.
that's correct. Now, I will say, the folks who developed it tried to buy that piece from Farrell. They tried. Because they were gonna, their plan was to try and extend that retail over. And they would have had to rezone it.
Okay.
But that, you know, so there's gonna be interest like that.
But that seals the use on the top of the T.
Yeah, and that, if they had extended that, that would essentially cut this off.
Right.
So that would have to be something different.
Yeah.
It would have to be a much
And
lower.
assisted living,
So-
I've been marketing on another side
that's right.
for assisted living,
Hey, I
They
want to
would
see
not
the
like that.
hospital.
They wouldn't choose that.
It's no visibility.
I don't know.
No, I just see it's no visibility.
What would he?
But could you do a lower density condo?
You have any
I
comments
mean,
about those?
that's what I think you could
What?
do, something like that, but turn it on.
Yeah.
Or small lots.
That's what we want. You have less trash,
You could do a little
you have,
subdivision.
they work
Small lots.
6 days a week, they're not there 7 days a week.
But where would they access it
Well,
from?
you got, well, they'll be coming off of Weldon.
Yeah,
That would give us more traffic on Weldon.
Well, it'd still be better than, high residential. You guys,
But I
again,
can
again, you
see,
gotta remember that they're only there for.
I could see maybe like a lower density, condominium type development or smaller lot residential, like a similar density.
8 to 5, I mean, they're not, you know.
So Mike, Gary, Mike lives just, that property touches him. That's his property right, just north of him. Okay, that's Mike Stallings, okay, that's Mike. So what he's saying is, you know, if Glenn Hosteller were to own that piece of property, Glenn would put, you know, it would be in, like a Memorial Drive, you know, where it's 8 to 5 activity.
Yeah, but that's,
It's a business park.
But keep in mind, 8 to 5 activity, or there's nothing in the zoning code that restricts hours. So it's only 8 to 5 by choice for those people that are there. If they want to run a second or third shift,
Oh, that's true.
they can.
You know.
and no industrial manufacturing would locate there because of access
You wouldn't-
to
it'd
trucks
be-
and stuff.
To 161.
Yeah, they want the better access for the trucks.
So really, the best scenario for that long piece of property of 17 acres on Weldon Road would be residential.
Which is never gonna happen.
The problem is, you're gonna have to run a road on, coming down through there. Somebody's, whatever developer buys that. is
Would
on
have
the
to
road.
access from
The
Lowe's.
back, from the back end.
Yeah.
Right.
Or they build a cul-de-sac back in there, build a road back in there.
That's costly.
Well, that's too valuable for lots.
Yeah, so that's 17 acres property.
That strip is
That strip is 17 acres.
Roundabout on the.
But there's a lot of folks out there now doing like single family, like detached condominiums, because there's a lot of demand for it, that product, because most of it's, you know, those of us that are getting older that don't want to mow 5 acres anymore. I mow 5 acres, I like it, but, and I'm gonna keep doing it for a while.
But actually, that kind of a use,
Yeah.
that would be people that don't want to drive very much, but that would have pedestrian access to the Costco site. That would be desirable for that, so, I mean, I think you're right, I think it's likely some kind of a residential use.
You're not getting any ideas over there.
No, I'm not, but that would not be high on my list of kind of projects to develop, but I think that's an example of, there's some use that's compatible with that retail, but that also would be transitional to the rest of the residential around there. And so it would be something higher than just straight single family, but just as Gary said, maybe it's detached condo or low density condos that are targeting that market segment that wants to live and be able to walk to the grocery store.
So I could ride my bike and go spend money.
Yeah.
But you'd need a
That's
Well,
not good.
But it's also, but you start to think about it, that it's someplace where we may not, you know, we all get to a point where driving might be difficult, but you can walk. And that's one of the fallacies of our planning system today, is that we're very auto-centric. And that at some point, all of us are not gonna be able to drive. And so we're gonna be dependent upon some alternative to deal with that.
drive themselves.
I'm gonna make my kids live with me driving around. I've had to do it for 10 years.
It's
Good luck,
So-
good luck on that.
So Gary, I think it sounds like the feedback from the Weldon Road folks that are here is, I think we would be okay with a low density residential in there. But as far as an apartment complex there,
I don't think that would be appropriate, that'd be too high
No.
density.
And it would probably not
And
be
the
marketable.
road does not,
The road doesn't support it.
no, it doesn't support it
Well,
at all.
no,
It doesn't
I was
support
gonna
what we have
ask
right
that.
now.
Number one, 17 acres is not going to support a high-density apartment complex.
Well, it could, but again, I think what we're saying is,
The
It's
infrastructure
not
does.
gonna work.
you could do high density on 17 acres and do it fairly effectively.
Okay.
But, and they do it all the time.
I mean, well, like property on Industrial Parkway next to Fraser, I mean, that's 24 acres. They're talking 9 buildings, 9.
It's actually a little larger than that, but they're talking, that was a total of 136 units. It's in the proposal. It's a mix of
It was
two-story.
22 acres.
It was 22 acres?
Yes,
Yeah.
60 acres.
Yeah.
So a little over 22.
Right.
22 to
It's
22.
it's 6 units the acre, but half of it's in open space.
60%.
Yeah, 60% of it's open space.
Right.
But, so in effect, they're doing apartments on only half of what the property is.
Yeah, but you won't have all the green space.
Right.
And that really what makes that property attractive.
Right. Well, I see that as more of like what Joe was talking about, where you either have an attached condo project or,
It's a classic Epcot site.
yeah, like Epcon's product, like
Yeah.
four family buildings, or a lot of people now are doing single family, they're doing a detached because they don't want the people don't want to mow, they like the condo, but they don't want the attached
And
wall.
they can get very close to the same density.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they are packed, closer together, but, they're residential uses, they're condominiums and that kind of use. And it sounds like that's something that's probably more preferable to you guys than having that turn into.
What's that?
It sounds like that's something that's more preferable to you guys than having that turn into like commercial use or multifamily use or something of that nature.
Personally, I think anything that people own is a good thing, or if it's a 55 and over community, is a good thing.
55 and over.
Not when you get close to 55.
Yeah, or the past 65.
All right.
My son, and I said this Monday night,
Yes.
my son lives at home. He has a bunch of buddies that went out and got an apartment, but he still lives at home. There's a reason he lives at home, because he understands that whole apartment deal. I don't want any apartments near me.
Well,
Okay.
and I guess, but I understand what you're saying. that-
He does because he doesn't want to pay the rent.
That's it.
It's easier living at home.
You
Yeah.
know it, you
Down
got
Dad's
it right
rules.
there.
And there are apartment projects, I mean, my firm's doing some that are downtown, that are catered to the.
Are you doing the flats on Vine?
We did flats.
Did you do flats?
Yeah.
Okay, I support flats.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, we did flats on Vine, flats 2 right next to it, and have done several downtown.
Okay, so let me
projects.
ask this, why does flats on Vine, what is the appeal to young professionals? Because that's who lives there.
Well, I think that the young professionals that, they want to live in an urban environment, and they want to be able to enjoy the nightlife and the activity. And they also
All
want
those
to
parking
pedestrian.
lots on the flats on Vine, if I do remember where it is, it's right by Nation.
Right.
That's right.
Well, to go back to our earlier discussion, if you remember what we were talking about in just the shift in demographics, the reality is that by 2050, the largest percentage of households are going to be single-person households. Because we're going to have so many empty nesters and so many young professionals. So that single-person households aren't going to be the folks going for single-family homes. They're going to want to have some place to live, and it's usually going to be a condo or a multifamily.
And my daughter's 35. She and her husband moved to San Francisco because they really wanted the urban lifestyle. Now, they couldn't afford it, so they're now living in Oakland, but
Yeah.
just across the bay.
Less people are getting married, and less people are having kids.
And when
I don't know if either one of those things are good for the United States as a whole, but that's what's happening.
And they do get married later and have children later.
So,
Yeah, they
okay,
do.
so the kind of the summary of what's happening is, number one, Jerome Township is looking for some tax revenue. Number two,
Well, it's not about tax revenue.
Well,
I don't wanna
okay,
make
okay,
it about-
but that's one issue.
But we want to make sure.
One of the other issues, or one of the main issues is, we need to create affordable housing in Jerome Township. That's number one.
We need to create a diverse.
Diverse, yes.
Not,
To death.
affordable housing is the wrong
Wrong term.
connotation.
Right.
These
Diversity is different. We can
Okay.
create very high quality product, and that's what we should be doing and should be encouraging. You know, I mean, Jerome Village is a good example of that. When they get done building all the fancy, expensive, single-family stuff, there's gonna be some condominiums in there. There's gonna be some different, now, I don't know that anybody that, you know, I know will be able to afford them, because of where they are, but that's the kind of thing that we're talking about, creating some different options and some diversity in housing. And, you know, when you say affordable, if you're talking about, you know, 200 and up, then, you know, that's a different type of affordable than when you're talking about Section 8 tax credit housing.
Okay, so just, this is my perception, is, you know, individuals that are on the west side of 33,
Mhm,
okay, they enjoy their space.
mhm.
They bought in this area where they have neighbors that are a distance from them
Yeah,
for a reason, not because they don't like people, they just wanted the space.
sure.
Um,
I share that. I live out in the
Okay.
middle of nowhere.
But if you are buying a home in Jerome Village, right, okay,
You have a different feeling.
you have a different feeling. I stood with the parade of homes, I stood in the hallway of one home and looking out the second floor window, and I'm looking about 10 feet into the bedroom of the house right next to me. I'm sorry, I don't care to have that kind of
Not
closeness to my
everybody
neighbors,
wants to live there.
okay? So when I look at development outside on the west side of 33, that's why we moved out there. We wanted some space. And and that's what my understanding is. If we're saying we want to have, an apartment complex, why not look at putting something up in that Jerome Village area that the people aren't so concerned about all that space?
Right.
Maybe that's a better location.
And there are some plans.
It's already
for-
in there.
There
Okay.
are some plans for Jerome Village. Now, they're 10 years down the road. But also, to get back to what you're saying, because I think this is important.
Because first of all, we need to figure out what's going on, or somebody else is gonna figure it out for us.
Well,
how I
that's
feel about it.
absolutely right, and that's what we're here to do tonight. I mean, if you look at, okay, this is the original township boundary. All of this stuff is no longer in the township.
And further to the north.
That's in Dublin.
It's now in
Now
Dublin.
in Dublin, that's what I'm
But it
saying.
wasn't.
They wanna
It didn't
come
used to
over.
be.
That's my church. I would
They
rather
are
it be in
coming
Jerome
over.
Township than Dublin.
They're not letting.
No, it's not inevitable. There's only so far they can go, but
How
the
far away is
reason.
the boundary?
The reason that I say that is because this is an example of what happens when you don't plan for it and you don't have options. They find an option.
That's what I'm saying, we gotta come to some agreement.
So you gotta get to a place where you provide options for people to develop their land in the township versus having to go somewhere else to develop their ground. But I wanna get back to what you said about as you go west, because I think that's really important. You have a corridor along Industrial Parkway where the city of Marysville's got sewer all the way down. But the reality is there are barriers as you go west to how far over that sewer can extend. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense.
So we need to tap into that.
And as
We're
you,
smart,
but
right?
as you go west, there's only so far that you can go west with that sewer. So as you go west, most of that area, just by default, is going to stay more rural because there won't be access to sewer moving over. But there is, unfortunately, Weldon Road is seeing the brunt of it, with Costco and everything. There is sewer right there. But, as you go further down Warner, as you go further along Post Road, and as you get into a lot of these other areas, it's gonna be very, very difficult and costly to push sewer over into those areas. So,
Here. So west of Weldon,
yes,
currently on the comprehensive plan, because I think you hear what Weldon wants for the weird two skinny lots.
right.
West of it now, I'm pretty sure is, what's that light blue? I can't remember. Is that,
The light blue was
Office?
offices. Yeah. office research. And so, you know, that's more of a, like a low-density employment situation. And then, when you look at the thoroughfare plan for the county, essentially what was gonna happen was, Hoosier was going to be connected up, and they were gonna come down from Mitchell DeWitt and make an alternate connection so that they didn't have so much pressure on Industrial Parkway for everything. And so that became more of kind of a natural transition to moving over to low-density residential uses, you know, moving to the west as that occurred. Now, the timing of this, 50 years, I don't know. I mean, that's a long way down the road.
Yeah, they did cut back
Yeah, it
their
depends on
road
the service.
budget.
What's that?
They did cut back the road budget.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, a lot of these things, again, are dependent upon growth pressure, you know, market demand. I could see this land, well, this stuff's zoned industrial right here. And so they've got an option right now that they can exercise
Which should probably be.
without any conversation from the rest of us, which will probably happen.
Dublin can?
And say what?
No, the land.
So that
And what are
farm,
they gonna do?
that farm,
This piece right here.
What do you say they're, what?
This piece in the blue,
Right,
they have an industrial zoning that exists today.
right.
so they could build industrial
It's not
buildings on it
Russian.
right now.
They could call me tomorrow and say, I'm gonna build an industrial building, and I have to say, as long as you meet the setbacks.
This is a
Actually, what
Don't you have
they
to
do is
do
bring the building permit.
They could
The
bring the
building
building
permit.
permit tomorrow. and-
They just couldn't build anything, don't you have a conditional land use that they'd have to go?
No, they have
through?
to comply with the zoning code, but when you look at the zoning
So
code,
what's the zone there?
It's
C1,
zoned industrial.
C2, what's the zoning?
it's zoned industrial.
And the highest zoning that you offer? You
Yeah.
offer?
That's,
So-
and it's been zoned that way since
Right.
1970.
I understand that, but I mean, if you're gonna go with a business, don't you have to go in front of you and present the business to see if it's,
They don't have to rezone it, the only thing that they have to do is comply with the zoning that's in place. So if they bring in a business that complies with the zoning that's in place, for instance, if it's a light manufacturing use or something of that, those all comply with the current zoning.
okay.
So the only thing they need to do from the township's perspective is to bring me a site plan that makes sure that the building is set back from the road the proper amount, and set back from the side lot lines the proper amount. And provided they do that, the township has no discretion to turn them down.
And how about the high wires going through there? They have to be away from the, you know, that high voltage line goes right through
Is
there.
there an easement?
Well, yeah, they can't build under the easement,
Right.
but as long as they're outside the easement,
They have to be outside the influence of that easement as
yeah.
well.
So what are you, I missed that. What are you, I know the Thomas guys own that.
Mhm.
And what are you saying? That they have plans for it now?
No. I'm saying if they did, they could build it tomorrow. Nobody is.
They haven't sold the land or anything like that.
Not as far as I know. Jesse, you had your hand up for a long time.
Yes, but he was talking about the zoning,
Mm-hmm.
and you forgot to tell him that the zoning, actually, the definition changes as within 30 days, because you now have a new zoning plan that you have accepted.
Yeah, but the permitted, or what's permitted, didn't really change that much. The definition.
No, because you've got all those definitions now, where it was a blanket definition before, you now have categories that they have to look through.
Right, they have to comply with what the zoning requires as it's adopted.
Right.
But as long as, but what I told them was still valid, as long as they comply with that zoning as adopted, they can still build there. And if the zoning doesn't survive, the new zoning code doesn't survive the referendum period, it goes back to the old zoning, and they can build what was ever permitted under the old zoning.
That's what I'm saying, there is a change coming up.
Yeah,
Those Thomas boys like to farm, they'll farm it.
they do.
But that.
Now, the new zoning code, I will say,
Because their father
provides,
sold.
Huh?
They have money because their father sold.
the
Dublin.
new
No,
zoning
that's two
code,
different Thomases.
Oh, is it?
These are cousins, and that property that everybody's talking about is locked up in a trust.
and I want to follow up to you real quick, because we're getting way out of time.
Yeah.
we're getting way past time, but I want to follow up with something. The other important part about the new code is, the new code, I think, provides some greater protections because there are increased setbacks required in the new code. There's also increased screening of outdoor and industrial uses required in the new code that aren't required in the old code. So the new code should bring about some improvements into how that whole area looks.
Since you just mentioned that, how big of the hills will be around Costco? If there's going to be a screening or a buffer?
Yeah, there is going to be a mound. Well, essentially, they're right here. They're up against bulk transit.
Right.
But there's going to be a mound and some screening installed there, and then we required them to carry that same screening around the back of these residential uses.
Which is what, 6 foot high?
I think they'll do everything they can to not see bulk transit.
Yeah.
Whatever they start at that end, I think they're gonna carry
Yeah.
around. I mean, I'm very serious about
But
that.
what is your zoning though? What is your requirement? 6 foot, 8 foot, trees?
Depends
What?
on where it is.
It depends on the difference between the uses. So similar uses, you don't have to have a big buffer like that. But like, for instance, if it goes between commercial uses and residential uses, then you have to provide a tighter screen and those kinds of things.
Gary, we would like a 20-foot mound.
Which?
I think we're gonna have a hard time right now.
That's what I'm working on here.
And we'll call it Mount McLean.
And you're supply of dirt.
We don't have to supply the dirt. Gary, there's so much dirt down on that property that
Yeah.
they can put a 20-foot
I
mound
really
on.
remember that dirt down to,
All right, I've already kept you guys until 9 o'clock, so
Okay.
I want to kind of
101
finish up what
on
we're
this.
doing though, because I want to talk a little bit more about some of the rest of this area. You know,
One piece of property you haven't talked about is where the old Hall's house is.
Yeah, the Warchansky farm.
This one?
Yeah, what's John Warchansky on that? What's happening with that?
Nothing. So, and he still does. That's,
I thought Dublin bought that, and
It was
they
eminent
bought it, and then they said they can't even use it.
no, they took a piece of it for the right of way.
Okay.
They took a piece of it for the right of way, but he still owns all this, and it's still got an industrial zoning too. So the question is, do you guys see that being an industrial use, or do you think there's another use that's equally as appropriate that you would prefer to see?
So does
I
that
see a
include?
hotel.
Does that include
Yeah,
the old?
That's a hotel.
I see a
oh,
hotel,
no,
bed tax.
no.
Dead
So
serious.
does that include the old Pro Tool rental space then too?
I think the old Pro Tool is actually right there, and I'm not sure if that's.
No, it's at the end of Weld Road.
Yeah,
It's at
that's
the end of
on
Weldon Road.
Right across the
On
street.
down further.
Keep going up, right there.
Right there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if he owns that or somebody else owns
I
that.
think that's separate.
I think somebody else owns that.
Okay, so you're asking us, the
That's
residents,
Kennedy
what do we want in there?
Well, I'm asking you, what do you think would be appropriate there? I'm not saying that I can get you what you want, I'm just saying if I'm gonna give somebody an option to go from residential or go from
So,
industrial
okay.
to something else, what would that option be?
So here's the real issue, right? This is so undeveloped at this point. There are people that are probably coming and knocking on the door, or they're going to be knocking on the door, asking you, Gary, we're submitting this request, we want to build here, here's what we want to build, right? That's what you're telling us.
It happens all the time.
And it's probably happening more and more frequently.
That is
So
correct.
as the residents, you're asking us, what do I tell? What should we tell people? Well, our first statement is, we don't want anything going in there. That's it, okay?
That's called a taking.
Okay?
That could be our green space.
So then, the next question is, okay,
In saying,
And what-
and understand,
Our group
in
will take
saying,
up a collection and we'll.
but understand in saying, I don't want anything there, what you're saying is, I want industrial there.
Well,
Because
no,
they
what
have
you're
an
saying
existing
is,
zone.
Right.
I'm gonna go, I'm telling you what you're gonna say. What you're saying is, I'm going next door to Dublin, and Dublin will help me annex into Dublin, and I'll get what I want. I think that's really the truth.
okay.
I
So
really-
what we need to do in Jerome Township is say, we're gonna decide what we want in that
Exactly.
space. So that when somebody comes and says they wanna develop this,
And we
Right.
can do
we
it.
already have that plan in
Right.
place.
That's what the comprehensive plan is.
That was
all
our
about.
whole goal all those years ago, is
Okay.
because we didn't want Dublin. I mean, I have land that I want protected as much as you guys, and I
Okay.
went to Dublin when they planned for my house.
Can I offer this?
So, that's,
You can offer anything.
Yeah, so here's my thought. They are having,
Missy's being really quiet.
there is, I work with Dublin Soccer League, you know, Ohio Champions Soccer League, and all these different soccer leagues. And I'm gonna tell you what, they would love to have another soccer park.
Okay, let's put it there then, that's a great
No,
place.
Now, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. You can do that under the industrial zoning.
Yes, okay, then that's what we want it to be. so we
I'm
need to
sick
work
of
on
this
that.
soccer moms too.
By the way.
No, because guess what, at dark, they're gone.
Go back to what you originally said.
Protected group now?
The value of the ground is so high, but in that industrial zoning, that either wait for an industrial user, or you have to offer an alternative to get them comfortable. Is that
Yes.
what you said?
That's the reality of it.
That is the reality. I mean,
I think
From a landowner, if I owned 200 acres right there at the corner, I would do one of two things. I would wait and find an industrial buyer for it because I already have the zoning.
And it will happen.
And it will happen.
Which this is John we're talking about.
Right.
And John,
Right there.
John was furious that they made
Especially
him
now
tear
when
down
he
the
sits
barn
house corners
because he
down.
wanted to leave some history there, his family history.
That was Dublin.
That was supported this thing.
That was Dublin.
Yeah, but it was in Dublin.
Right. But, you know, but keep in mind, John isn't gonna live forever.
Right.
Sooner or later, somebody in his family's gonna inherit it, and they might want to sell it. Well, then it'll be in some sort of an estate. Somebody will own it. I don't know who, but somebody will own it. So the reality is
He could look at somebody with stipulations to go and not sell it or something.
well, he absolutely could. He absolutely, he could put it in a farmland trust. You wanna go ask him?
No, I mean, I'm just,
He could.
I'm just saying, there's all
Yeah, Miles,
all
you gotta
different
talk
types of things that could happen, you know what I mean?
So
You
That's
can't
right.
just say one thing.
Well, we can.
I mean, you can.
We can say this is what we're looking
Yeah, I
for,
remember that line.
but he's got an option.
So
He's
Gary,
got
what are you
He's got an
saying
ass
is
right.
what are you saying, and you're hearing this as on the zoning board, right? I mean, are you,
I'm hearing this as a resident as well.
yeah, but, I mean, you're getting more and more developers that are asking this.
Here's
What
what
are they asking for that property?
Well, here's what I think. I think that you can get really caught up in, there's a piece of blue land and I want it to be bleh. It's already blue.
Right.
It's blue.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of have to move past it. It's blue.
So, yeah,
Okay?
you can't change it.
But what you need to have in mind is if the blue people come in, like what's happening, and say, well, no, we really think, and based upon the comprehensive plan you've said you want, is that what you really want? What you really, I think you guys need to spend more time talking about now is where do you really want higher density
I
apartments?
think that would be a
More
really good
shopping.
spot. Now, don't kill me,
Yes.
but it's across from the school, it's close to the freeway, wouldn't add a whole lot of traffic to those residential areas or those lower density housing that we have. It's right there.
So that's one option. They're saying that chunk, you also will have I would actually tell you, I think all of Highland, that whole Highland Croy area would be a bit, I mean, that's my opinion, but that's just me, you know, I mean, but going up to Warner Road and to Fraser Estates, I think the hardest thing for us as the, at least on the zoning board, was I promise you, in 2008, half of the Fraser Estate people came in and said, we want transitional housing, we don't want commercial next to you. That's why we did it. I mean,
Right.
you were here, and now for the other half to come and say, no, that's not what we want. So it's like, we can't make decisions until the community speaks of what they want, but saying, like, don't get caught in the details, get caught in
I can live,
the
I
bigger
can live
picture.
with, I can live with the manufacturing. I can live with that. I can live with that. I know what it's zoned. I can accept that.
I think you can, this is me. I
Because
think I
I
could
see
live
it
with some
every day.
stuff, but, and I hope bulk transit is in here, I'm really sorry, bulk transit. I couldn't live with bulk transit next to me.
But there's stipulations.
think there
You're
is?
absolutely right. That's wrong. But what I'm saying is a nice, well-kept manufacturing. I can deal with that. 8 to 5 or whatever. You know, I can deal with that.
Well, and you got a county economic development director right now who is actively engaged in trying to find those opportunities all up and down the 33 corridor. So it's probably closer to a reality.
I mean, I can deal with
What about a
that.
business, what about a business park?
Laura.
Like on Memorial Drive, there's some businesses in there that are,
Well, and the blue zoning allows for,
It already allows that.
that's probably what will happen. I mean, that, it's probably not gonna be a Honda manufacturer.
Well, professional building, or professional
Some of that part out.
That's probably closer to what.
Probably.
So be careful what you say, because, yeah, some of it is going 24-hour day operations.
you know,
Yeah, I think I've lost control. People are starting to die out.
I'm good till 1.
Not me, because I was here until midnight Monday night, and I'm not doing it again.
I think we're gonna, I'm gonna talk. We need to talk.
Yeah, we need to get together with our
The
neighbors.
Monday night table, did that apartment complex table?
Both of them.
Both?
Both that, there were two.
The single family and the multi-family.
There was the Homewood,
Yeah.
Up here.
and then the apartments, and they both. Yes.
What is it, you know, I came in here and
I am the township zoning officer, so I deal with zoning and planning related issues.
Zoning enforcement.
Zoning enforcement.
So-
those kinds of things. Oh,
yes, you changed it. I think my husband talked to you.
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So one thing, I mean, are you,
And
let
that's.
us, somebody submit stuff?
Well, we have to come.
Well, there are two, I'll fill you
And
in.
your website does know.
We're gonna fix that. We are going to fix that. It's been
I
down
know, I was
for
just
3
letting you
months.
know.
We're
That's
gonna hire a consultant, we'll hire a new one.
Here, let me talk to you now.
We're not gonna do this again. There are 2 ways that probably get some, but just to answer your question.
But maybe something like a school raise.
The property's already zoned, just like that blue area, and they come in with an application that meets the zoning. There's no rezoning required, there's no public notice required. And this goes back to the state.
Because our township does, I mean, like, we do support
In terms of
plain
how
sight, and I do support those schools, and that is what's most frustrating.
I know, it's like, we
Properties
can't.
are
I go to other
They raise
schools
it,
cheaper than
but it's expensive.
I can't, because I work in a
And so if they're gonna continue, that's their, now some people work, raise it.